What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Tony Ferguson reacting to comments that he's washed up. With 4 losses in a row, including having been knocked unconscious by Michael Chandler in his last outing at UFC 274, some are saying that Tony Ferguson is washed up and needs to retire. The last time El Cucuy won a fight was all the way back in June of 2019, a TKO win over Donald Cerrone in the second round. This was his 12th win in a row and included a stint as interim lightweight champion. Ferguson was on top of the world, but injuries and COVID-19 derailed any chances of him fighting for the undisputed UFC lightweight title against Khabib Nurmagomedov. With the way he was knocked out by Chandler back in May, there are calls being made that Ferguson should just hang up the gloves. But now he's sounding off online at all the people who say he needs to retire. This is what he said in a recent tweet. Washed up? Dana White, I'll give you washed up. Washed these nuts. Now I'm pissed. Hashtag, sometimes you need to hear that. Hashtag, fire fucking lit. Hashtag, tough times. In typical Tony fashion, the tweet included a litany of emojis and hashtags. Still, Ferguson has called out Khabib to coach opposite him in a future season of The Ultimate Fighter, something that Dana White has stated he will look into and possibly consider. What do you think of Tony Ferguson saying he's ready to prove all the doubters wrong? Conor McGregor gives props to new light heavyweight champion Jiri Prochazka. UFC 275 brought us one of the greatest light heavyweight title fights in the history of the promotion. A true back and forth affair that was so topsy-turvy, the judges must have been glad that there was a finish. With nearly 30 seconds to go in the entire fight, Jiri Prochazka submitted Glover Teixeira by a rear naked choke to claim the belt. It was an incredibly grueling fight at the Singapore Indoor Stadium that is certainly going to go down as an all-time classic. Prochazka was able to show his skill level in striking and the grappling department against someone who, by all accounts, has so much experience and showed true grit the entire time in Teixeira. One guy who's completely over the moon with Prochazka's win is the Irishman himself, Conor McGregor. The Notorious One took to Twitter to issue a big congratulations to another member of the Paradigm Sports family. Paradigm Sports' newest and the Czech Republic's first UFC World Champion, the indomitable samurai Jiri Prochazka. What a fight! What a performance! Huge congrats! A former Rising champion, Prochazka was able to become the UFC champion in just his 3rd fight for the promotion, finishing all of his opponents so far in the octagon. What do you think about Conor's comments here? And what do you think about the fight at UFC 275? Don't forget to take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the MMA Zone to stay up to date on the latest fight news. Valentina Shevchenko responds to calls that her opponent was robbed at UFC 275. And still, Valentina Shevchenko was able to come away with a split decision win over Taila Santos at UFC 275. Santos came to fight and showed incredible range and high-level grappling. Santos pushed Valentina further than she had ever been pushed before. So much so that some online are saying they don't agree with the decision to give the W to Shevchenko. Some had the fight scored for Santos. It looked like some media members also agreed and took the opportunity to ask Shevchenko during the post-fight press conference what she thought about the idea that she possibly lost that fight. The champion says that while Santos would have controlled her on the ground, particularly while on her back, the champ was able to hit back and it proved to nullify Santos' attacks because it made her tentative to slap on any submission attempts. This is what Valentina stated in the post-fight press conference.
And me being even in that position, I was like striking and I feel the power of the strike and I felt how she reacts because it was hurting her. And this is what counts the most in mixed martial arts, damage. And through the fight, like going from round to round, you could see like more damage showing on her face more and more.
Santos gained a ton of fans over her performance and could have laid a possible blueprint for how to beat Valentina. Valentina's future opponents will no doubt be studying this fight for clues on how to get the best of her, as Valentina now has a 9-fight winning streak and successfully defended her title 7 straight times. What do you think of the decision to give Valentina the split decision in the UFC Women's Flyweight title fight? Khamzat Chimaev gives us who and when he'd like to fight. With the way he's been fighting and his most recent win over Gilbert Burns, it's safe to say that Khamzat Chimaev has taken the UFC by storm. In a potential fight of the year bout back in UFC 273 this past April, Chimaev and Burns showed the world what some of the top welterweights in the world look like when both want to meet in the center of the octagon. It was an epic clash, and by the end of it, Chimaev came out on top by a decision. It was his biggest test to date, and he passed, propelling himself into the top 5 of the division. It's unclear who exactly he'll be taking on next, but there have been a few names thrown his way. First, there was the possibility that he would fight Colby Covington, although those plans appear to be nixed. Then, he called out Belal Muhammad, and there's also Nate Diaz out there. Well, in a recent tweet, he laid out who he wants and when he wants to fight. This is what he tweeted: August, Nate Diaz. October, Belal Muhammad. Short and sweet. Chimaev got into a Twitter exchange with Belal Muhammad last week in which both guys agreed to a potential clash in October in Abu Dhabi. Muhammad is coming off a big decision victory over Vicente Luque. Meanwhile, Diaz, who is in a bit of a dispute with the UFC, last fought and lost to Leon Edwards last year. He's aired out his frustrations with the promotion over putting pen to paper with any opponent, which he hopes would be his last in the UFC. He's been open about leaving the promotion after this last fight on his contract. Chimaev has been linked with a potential title shot in the near future if he can gather another victory, but that remains to be seen. He's currently number 3 in the division, and seemingly the sky is the limit. What do you think about Chimaev's comments about who and when he wants to fight? Do you want to see him take on either Nate Diaz or Belal Muhammad? Glover Teixeira issues statement following his UFC 275 light heavyweight title loss. Glover Teixeira is gonna go down as a beloved UFC champion who finally won the title after years of hard work and having overcome seeming impossible odds to take the title at 42 years old last October at UFC 267, becoming an inspiration to many. He's been on this MMA journey for 19 years, and while many believe that Jiri Prochazka would win this fight at UFC 275, no one could have predicted the absolute instant classic of a fight that we witnessed over the weekend. Glover came out swinging and shooting and was able to take down Jiri several times during this bout, using his grappling skills to control Jiri for big chunks of time in the fight, letting his ground and pound wear on the Czech fighter. Ultimately, however, Jiri was able to take the victory with nearly 30 seconds left in the fight and submitted Glover with a rear naked choke. Following the loss, Teixeira took to Instagram to issue a message to fans around the world, which he stated in Portuguese. "We got hit a little bit there, but I gave my best in this fight. But the hand came in the neck, I was very tired, and I think I didn't believe in the submission. I should have turned, but now it's too late to cry over spilled milk. Live by the sword, die by the sword. I gave my best, and it wasn't enough. But let's go for the next one. Thank you to all of you that root for me for the support. I'm fine, just a few cuts, but let's go." With Prochazka as champion, it's unclear who Glover will be fighting next. He did state he would continue to fight and has called for a rematch against the champion. At the moment, the likely scenario being floated out there is that Jiri would defend his title against Jan Blachowicz, seeing that Glover stated he would be next in line for a title shot if he had beaten Jiri. Other guys in contention are Magomed Ankalaev and Anthony Lionheart Smith, who are fighting each other at UFC 277 next month. Do you want to see Glover and Jiri run it back in a rematch for the title? Or do you feel that Jiri should take on Blachowicz or the winner of the Smith-Ankalaev fight? Thanks so much for joining us today. What do you make of what's going on in the fight world? Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all the latest news from the MMA Zone. See you next time.